This is a quick overview of the things that we covered during the first session of the Canva STI course. So first thing is canva.com will get you in. If you've logged in before, it should log you automatically in. If you've never logged into Canva before and you're a Scarsdale teacher, you'll click login with email. You'll type your full email, scarsdaleschools.org. It'll route you through the Scarsdale Azure login screen because if you look over here on the left, we have Scarsdale Schools. What happens is we as a district have the district level version of Canva, which means we get access to everything for free. We get all the premium features for free. We get all the premium elements and artifacts for free. So we have that. If you've ever logged in before, and let's say you initially did it a year or two ago with Google, this little drop down, you might see that you have additional teams. So for instance, my Christopher Casal education team right here is when I logged in with my school Google account before we had a district account, it gave me sort of above the level of free, but below the super premium. So when we had the district super premium, that's why I have this other account. You'll notice I was added to Vivian Roberts' free account because she had set up one that was free and she was not a verified educator at the time she set it up, and she added me to this team. So I have multiple that I can toggle between. For Scarsdale, we want to have the Scarsdale Schools up here because when this is the team you're working with, then you get all of your elements for free. Now, what we did was we started out by just creating a design. There's all sorts of things, social media things, whiteboard, print products. What I like to start with is creating just a design. Now, one thing that people run into all the time is they made a doc. Don't make a doc. Making a doc means that it's a text-based item. So everything is going to be dependent on where the text should go. Instead, what we do is we make a custom size. Now that custom size, we're going to change it from pixels to inches, and we're going to do 8.5 by 11. Now, we're not going to do resume, magazine, cover newsletter. Even if you're going to make a newsletter for your class, don't do newsletter, because then it becomes a text-based element and you lose some of the design freedom and flexibility. So I'm just going to do an 8.5 by 11 canvas, essentially, blank canvas, and I'm going to create a design. It's going to open up in a new tab. Once it opens up, you could always come back over here. You can see your dashboard, and if you scroll down your dashboard, you see all the things you've created. On this untitled design, what I want to do is over in this top right corner, it says untitled design. Click on that and give it a file name. So, STI demo. And you have that as a file name. You can also save these things in specific places. So up here to the left, file, you can do, you can save to a folder. So right now it's just in my generic account. So if I wanted to save this to a folder, I could either choose a folder I've already made, or I could create a new folder. So I'll just do the STI 6010 folder. Then that way it's going to organize this piece of work. So now this design is added to that folder. What also is helpful is right here in the left, you see that it actually says STI 6010 as the folder. So it actually tells you when you're working in a project, if you go to file, it tells you the file name. It also tells you where that file is located. Now, some people like to look at templates. One of the problems with the templates is that oftentimes it will lock you into certain font sizes, font styles, or maybe certain elements of the template that are not changeable. I don't like using templates for that reason. I like to create my own templates. So how do we do that? I might add some text. And what we did during that first class was we basically just did a simple like welcome to my classroom poster. I typed the text. Now over here at the top, you can change your fonts. You can change your size, change your font color, bold, italic, underline, all those sorts of things. You can also just change the size by taking this and dragging it. As I move this, I'm looking at a center line. It tells me it's centered. I can bring it down, and that's totally centered on the page, right? You'll also notice it brings out, you see that purple. Now that purple, it's like the artificial intelligence. It's sort of saying, look, this isn't a document. There's no margins on it. However, that's sort of the center of it, giving you like a 1-inch margin around the page. You are allowed to go right to the edge, but I wouldn't recommend it because if you ever did want to print this out, printers tend to add even a couple of millimeter margin, and part of that W might actually get chopped off, or most likely will get chopped off. So what's nice is it gives you sort of a sense of your text should kind of stay within that purple space. So that way it will ensure that whether you're printing it out, whether you're putting it on as an image on a website, whatever, the text is within a frame where you will be actually able to see it. So I'm going to move this just up here, and I'm going to line this up with that purple. And there's that. I just added a text box. A heading will automatically come in larger. Obviously, you can change things, do different things. Click it, delete it. What you can also do is with any element, you're always going to have this bar up here where we click on this. I could take my little grabber and I move it. Next to this grabber is a rotation thing. If I want to rotate, if I ever screw up, there's the undo button up here. You can do things like effects on the text, little shadows, curves. It's kind of not great because it's their own version of it. So a lot of times what I'll do is if I'm looking for something like a shadow, I'll make my thing bigger. I'll get it kind of where I want. And then what I'll do is I'll just duplicate. So like Command D on a Mac is just to duplicate this. And then what I'll do is I'll just kind of offset it. Now, down here at the bottom, little zoom. Just going to zoom in. Looks a little bit weird right now, no problem. I can take it, I can kind of get it to where I want, and then I use my arrow key. And I can just kind of ever so slightly take it like that with my arrow key. What I can also then do is go to the color and let's make it gray. Now, the gray is on top of the black. That's weird. I want it the other way around. Very easy to do. Click one of the elements and I go to position. I have my standard forward, back, but I also have layers, and it shows me where the layers are, and I can just pick and hold and drag this up. Now that layer is on top and my little drop shadow is on the bottom. I can also, if I want to, hold down shift and I click the first layer, hold down shift, click the second layer, and then I can group. What that's going to do now is by grouping is I get to resize it, move it around, change it however I want, and it's going to move that together. So with the layers, you shift click multiple layers to group them together. Come out here real fast. What we also put on this, we went to elements and we put a picture. So maybe we did classroom. You're going to get graphics, photos, videos. You're going to get all sorts of different things. Graphics have some nice functionality. Like for instance, if I put in this chalkboard, make the chalkboard bigger, then you'll notice up here on this editing bar, so everything's always up here. I've got all these different colors. I have 5 different colors. What that's going to do is allow me to change the different colors of this element. So if I don't want the chalkboard to be green, I want the chalkboard to be pink. Now my chalkboard's pink. I can change any of these to be any color. Now, some elements have fewer options. I'm going to click this. This is a pencil case. This pencil case also has 5 available colors. So I can change it out, make it look how I want. If I put this in, this is a photo. And how I know it's a photo is it says edit photo when I click on it. So I can't change any of the colors in it. It's a fixed photo. So that's sort of the difference between a photo and a graphic. Some graphics will have fewer things. So let's go and look at a number. Let's do the number 1. And I put in the number 1. This number 1 will allow me to change the center color to be blue and then the exterior or the number color to be black. So that particular graphic has just 2 sets. The chalkboard had a lot more. And as you're looking at these things, these little EDUs, those are sort of these paid elements or these premium elements that we get to use. If you were using your own account, like a personal Gmail account, it would tell you that you would have to you could put it in, but they would charge you money if you actually wanted to save your file and export it for print or something like that. So the benefit of us for those types of things, in addition, similarly, when you come into the fonts, you'll see these little crowns. That means we have access to it. So if you are at Edgemont or another school district, you may not have this yet. Your IT department just has to set you up with Canva. It's free. Canva just connects essentially your email domain and grants you all these pro level things. So we had that. We also talked about things like images. So let's say I go to a photo, put a photo of a finger in there. So it's a photo. There's not a whole lot I can do with the photo. Resize it, move it around. It's all free form. flip it position. This right here is your transparency. So if I wanted to make it look a little bit lighter for some reason, doing a collage with that, I could do that. You also have to be careful about locking it, because if you lock it, then you can't move it. Now what you have to do is you got to make sure that you unlock it. Then you can move it around. So just be aware of the lock thing. Now with photos, we also talked about frames, because you may want to put a photo in a frame. Now frames, sort of with a capital F, are these things that always have this background, right? They always have this sort of default placeholder background. These are photos of frames. And so you can kind of put stuff in the middle, but you move it around. Like you have to make it kind of work. Now, that one has that hole in the middle. Not all of them work like that. This one does. That one you can kind of tweak and adjust. These frames are different, because what these frames do, and if I go to see all, this is capital F frames, I get all sorts of shapes. Once it loads, you'll see all sorts of shapes. You'll see, these curves, computer screens, things like that. And what you can do with this is, we'll go down here and get a wild one. So we'll grab this one, we'll put this one in, and that's my frame. Then if I come back here to my photos, and let's say I grab a photo that I've uploaded of somebody. You can upload your own photos. Say I take my computer lab and I drag that photo and I put it right inside of it. What it does is it gives it that sort of design element. So that's the difference between getting a picture of a frame that may have a space. Like if we put this in, I may not be able to actually put, that's a picture frame, but I would have to manually kind of size things to fit in it. But I don't want to do that. So when I want to actually do a frame, like a real frame in a picture, I use the actual, like I say, sort of, I call it the capital F frames, because when you do that, you'll see that there are these frames, they all have that placeholder. Now, for the most part, there's no borders on them. So, okay, so if you want something with a border, easiest thing to do would be just to do something like a square. And we don't even need frames. We'll just go to graphics. Let's say you wanted this, you put this in. It's going to let you change your color. So let's make it black. Then I would just come back here and I would just put my picture in it per se. And it's not physically in it, right? I just sort of have to now line them up. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to kind of have that on the outside a little bit. And then I'll kind of drag this out here. Now this one's not letting me go horizontal. So like I would have to crop my photo, which I could do. So if I wanted, let's say I wanted this to be like that, I could double click on my photo and it'll allow me to crop. So then I could take the edge of my photo, bring it in, and say done. So it's sort of faking it, right? Then I can drag this down a little bit. It'll fill it. Now again, I click on this, I'd go to position, and then I would click on this first one. I would hold down shift, click on the square around it, and then group those together. So that's sort of how you would fake having kind of a big border around your image. And this zoom is super helpful because it lets you fine tune things. Like for instance, if I go back to the number one, no, I'm going to go to elements. I'll go to the number one. If you put this in, as you go to resize these, you'll see it gives you this height and this width. So if I wanted to make it, 1 by 1, do that, I can then bring it and move it over here. Sometimes to be accurate, you got to kind of zoom in. So it can be a little bit more fine detail. It gives you magic recommendations based on what you just used. It's sometimes very helpful because now you want the 2 go in, right? So we click on the 2 goes in, make it smaller, but I'll bring it down here. I want to line it up. So that dotted line at the top is letting me know those tops are even. Drag it down and get that bottom line. That's all even. Now, if I move it up and down, now see I have those 2 lines in the middle. What sometimes happens is Canva you adjust, and the one you get kind of, it'll look like it's the same, but then it'll take a second to have some adjustment. But you want to basically look for those lines, especially that center line right in the middle, because that's letting you know it's all lined up. And again, you can group those together, things of that nature. Zoom out, sort of see the whole picture. Some people want to do things like backgrounds, and I mean, you could do backgrounds, but you could do things like texture, let's say. And there's texture backgrounds, paper texture. I mean, let's just say I take this one. So I'll do a couple things now that I have that. I can just kind of bring it up, stretch it out. Now you notice it covers everything except for the words. The Canva AI is good enough that what it does is it kind of recognizes the words and never lets things cover words, but it'll let it cover everything else. Then you can do these, everything has these 3 dots. You can click the 3 dots and you can do set image as background. You could also do the position and then just drag it all the way to the bottom. So there's different ways to accomplish that. If I were to set image as background, now it's there and that's my textured background, and I can add things on top of it. And that's why I like not using a built-in theme. I like to create my own, so I have the flexibility to mix and match. You can also add pages, so you can do multiple page things. It's going to say page regardless of whether it is. You make it an Instagram thing, it'll say add page. It would just be another Instagram thing. It's just a way for you to be able to create multiple elements or multiple versions of something or similar things without having to make a million new files if everything is kind of along the same theme. So that's the basics of what we went through during the first class, just adding those things. What we also talked briefly about is how when you share, you'll be able to download. You'll be able to download as a PNG, JPEG, PDF, print. We're going to talk more about movies and stuff in the following sessions, but that's essentially the basics. And for that first session, everyone kind of made like a welcome to my classroom sign just to practice putting in texts, a graphic, a picture, kind of mess with backgrounds. And you can see some examples if you watch the full course recording, which is also on this playlist. And then the homework assignment was, now that you kind of have this, make a new file, a new design that has a little bit more text in it and is a little bit more detailed, meaning what you want to do is, instead of just 1 or 2 bits of welcome to my class, here's my email address, here's a picture, now think of it in terms of like maybe an open house 1-pager of information for people. Maybe it's, you know, things to know about this class cheat sheet tutorial type thing for students, something that now has a little bit more text. And one of the examples I gave was when I look at some of the things I've created, it's one thing to make kind of a simple poster, which is sort of the activity that we did for the first session of this class. It's another thing to do something that's a little bit more detailed. Like, for instance, this is the requirements that for our 5th grade capstone project that I make in Canva. So this has more text, but it has consistency of colors, consistency of elements. You know, I reuse these lines. And that was another aspect of the homework assignment is, as you're designing this, think about a way to start making something that's going to kind of be a consistent theme for yourself. Meaning all the things I make have sort of these black bars separating sections, kind of these yellow bars being like, this is the header of this section, things like that. So as you look through, you can see I have a lot of different things that are similar in nature, like substitute instructions, a tutorial, similar in nature, you know, title, this is separated out, a little bit of text. I got an image, a couple arrows, sort of directions. So the homework assignment is, you've made sort of this basic class poster with a couple of simple elements. Now you're going to kind of up that. Something that is either for students, you know, high school doesn't give stuff out to parents the way middle school and elementary does. You know, it could be a 1-pager for an elementary teacher to give to parents, think maybe newsletter concept, but something that's like clean and neat and is starting to become the design style for everything you create, that has a little bit more text, not crazy text heavy, but a little bit more text, related image, just kind of now upping the ante from just being a simple graphic to being something a little bit more detailed, but still 1 page and not a doc. Again, we're not using docs. Custom size, 8.5 by 11. A doc will restrict you and you will not be able to move things around as easily. So that's a quick review of what we covered in the first session of the Canva class. Feel free to watch the full Canva session if you need to as well. And looking forward to seeing everyone on the second Canva session. Thank you.